the Everything But Politics podcast.
Hello, all, and welcome back to Everything But Politics. Joining us today is a man who has made incredible strides in the world of addiction recovery, as well as in his own life. Dr. Robb Kelly, excited to have you here, excited to learn. Thank you for being a part of our show.
Awesome, man. Merrick, thank you so much. And Evan, thank you so much for having me.
Our pleasure.
Yeah, our
Robb,
pleasure.
Robb, let me start by saying what an amazing assistant you have in Courtney. She's just been a joy to work with this last week. She's incredible.
You know, everybody says that. And I tell her that as well. I say, hey, these guys have, come on, I'll tell her this. And she's like, oh, it's just what I do. She's very humble. But yeah,
That's
she's
awesome.
amazing.
Lovely.
Yeah, that is amazing. So, as I've been prepping for this interview and learning more about you and really alcohol in terms of addiction more than other substances or even porn, sex, tablet stuff, whatever. We'll get into that. But for the alcohol, as I kind of began to think about it, when you've traveled the world, when you look all over the place, there's nothing more readily accessible than alcohol everywhere. I guess that kind of forms into a question of its own, maybe a history lesson. How did this happen with alcohol becoming the number one thing really on every shelf, every bar, every table across the world? It is right there in your face.
I think first of all, you've got to look at the tax that the government get off alcohol. It's huge. And secondly, when COVID was here and liquor stores were listed as essential businesses, there's some kind of problem out there. So I just think it's easy accessible. It's accepted, as legal and okay to take. But alcohol in itself. Let's take aside addiction for a second and alcoholism. Alcohol itself is a poison, man. It's a depressant. So we see lots of people coming to us who have fallen into depression because they're drinking every night. So we have to understand what alcohol does to the body, and especially if you are an alcoholic, what it does to the mind. See, alcoholics are born and drug addicts are made. So when you look at alcohol, it's a totally different ball game than any other addiction in the world. So I think just because it's legal, man, and it's everybody, I mean, today it's crazy. I go out somewhere and he said, "What do you want to drink?" I'll have an orange juice. You don't drink? No. Why? Why? What? Why you asking me why? You don't do that at parties. You don't want cheese on your cheeseburger? Why? Nobody does that. But with alcohol, it's like when I grew up. If you didn't drink, you wasn't trusted because you had to be in the bar every night after work, a few pints with the boys, then back home. So it's crazy.
And Rob, when you were addicted to alcohol, were you also addicted to anything else? Maybe like,
I took cocaine now and again, especially when I was a musician doing session work at early hours of the morning. But it's alcohol only with me. Now, most people are dual, but I've taken morphine for I had a back surgery and stuff like that. It doesn't bother me. I'm just very careful what I put into my body. If I have a headache, I do not take headache pills, or I want to find out why the headache is there rather than let's cover it up, because it could be something serious, it could not. So I'm really careful.
Yeah.
absolutely.
So in previous interviews, I've heard you discuss that you took your first sip of alcohol at 9 years old. So I'm curious, you said that was just the beginning of the end, but in terms of the moment you took that sip to, being 10 years old, 11 years old, 12 years old, how did your life transform from a 9-year-old into a teenager? Were you really thinking about alcohol, or that kind of emerged later in your teenage years?
Now, it emerged later. I just knew that when I took alcohol, most people at the age of 9 years old, when they take alcohol, they spit it out and go, "Oh, that's horrible." Alcoholics don't do that. When alcoholics drink alcohol for the first time, remember we have a predisposition and three parts of our brain differ. So when we take alcohol, the whole world lights up. So it's over a period of time. We go through that, drinking weekend, and then we go through the heavier drinking. Then we cross over where the hypothalamus comes in. We cross over into drinking alcoholically. Once we do that, there's no return. I mean, one of the questions I ask all the time to people who think alcoholism is the only self-diagnosed illness in the world. 10 DWIs do not make you an alcoholic. Drinking every day does not make you an alcoholic. It's what happens to my brain and my body when I take alcohol in. But when we get to that stage of drinking alcoholically, the percentage of death is pretty high to alcoholics. So it's either prison, um, treatment center, or death. And I died twice on the streets in Manchester, England, because of my alcoholism. And they brought me back to life both times, and it still didn't stop me drinking.
And how long have you been sober for now?
I always say a few days now because, terms of sobriety do not impress me. What impresses me is when you see me and you see I have my shit together and I talk confidently and I make things happen. I mean, that, I'm one of the good guys who's recovered from that hopeless state of mind and body.
So a good friend of ours who recently joined the show named Josh, episode 96. Josh, he was a year sober. But I would imagine that first 7 days is much harder than when you're 7 months in. How does it get harder or easier over time, or it's just there's a constant battle?
Well, it can't be a battle. If it was a battle, I'd be drinking by now, and so many recovered alcoholics. Let me give you the neuroscience behind it. And this what puts us into the leading authority on alcoholism and addiction. Let's take an alcoholic. 3 parts of the brain differ. So it's a predisposition passed down from generation to generation. It's the only disease that gets passed down from generation to generation, even though it may skip a generation. You cannot pass heart disease, inflammation, and you can't do that. We go to the food, what we eat, the deficiency, the lack of methylation that causes it. So what happens, let's take the hypothalamus. So the hypothalamus in the brain is our survival part of the brain. It tells from birth, you need to drink water and eat food to survive. That is it. We know that. We do it automatically. During the drinking career of an alcoholic, the hypothalamus changes and tells the alcoholic to drink alcohol only. That's why we can go days or weeks without food or water. So when the survival part of the brain is telling the alcoholic to drink alcohol above everything else to survive, that's when it becomes a disease. So we look at the basal ganglia, which is our repetition, and we look at neural pathways, which is our thought patterns to relapse. Once all that's reconfigured, once we change neural pathways, once we reprogram the brain and the central nervous system, therefore behaviors, it becomes easier and easier. But you have to remember that in the early days, it's hard, man, but it doesn't take long to recover from alcoholism when you know what you're dealing with. We can, 3 of us go out on the streets right now. We can ask 100 people, what's alcoholism? And they'll say the same thing, guys. Somebody who drinks too much. That's not the case. That's not the case.
Dr. Robb, when I was in 5th grade, I vividly remember my 5th grade teacher teaching us in class that it takes 21 days to make and break an addiction. Is this false, or is that a true statement? With alcohol or with anything, 21 days.
Alcohol's a different category. Drug addiction, I agree with that. I agree. So alcoholics are born, drug addicts are made. What I mean by that is one's born with the disease because it is a disease that festers. Drug addiction or drug addicts, they have the addictive personality. So how do we know that? Well, 90% of people that come to us with a heroin addiction started in the doctor's office. Wow. Oh, what? So we know that it's the addictive personality. And when we see people recover from drug addiction, they go on to do amazing things because the addictive personality are geniuses. They're really geniuses. And alcoholics who get well with geniuses.
So if alcoholics are born and, drug addicts are made, so addiction stems from trauma. So would that pertain much more so to drug addicts opposed to alcoholics, or they all fall under the same umbrella?
They fall into the same umbrella because of this. So alcoholics are a bit more sensitive. We're very sensitive people. So with childhood trauma, and everybody has childhood trauma, whether you think you have or not, you have it. I can literally speak to anybody and tell you where your trauma is. So what we do as an adult here started here, but you cannot put the two together on your own. You need somebody who knows what they're doing. So childhood trauma is the gateway drug. For any addict or alcoholic, what we do is that basal ganglia, the repetition, strength, and confirms part of the brain, and the subconscious brain that wakes us up in the morning, wants to dive straight into what people told you, what people do to you, which we thought at the time it happened was not child abuse. We thought that's the way it is. If you're a girl, young girl, growing up in an alcoholic, dysfunctional house, where she sees at the age of 4, 5, 6, 7, dad coming home a couple of times a week, drunk, fist fight with mom, she learns a couple of things. First of all, that's a loving relationship. When dad comes home, it's just part of the deal. And secondly, when she leaves that house, goes to college or gets a job, she will attract the same guy who ends up beating her and drinking too much, because we attract what we think we are worth. So to the fact that if she goes out and meets a good guy, she'll self-sabotage that relationship because it doesn't feel natural to her.
That's really it.
Why do you think that is the case? Why is the human body conditioned to just seek what we're conditioned to in what we've known in the past?
Well, it's the only thing we know. You know,
Mhm.
if you're brought up when you get no, no adoration, no loving, dad doesn't approve you or validate you, then we seek validation from other places and other people and substances and stuff like that. So, if you're growing up and always being told you're ugly or you're not worth it or you'll never amount to anything, then we adopt that in our brain. Again, the basal ganglia and slightly the amygdala as going on. What we have to remember, we attract what we think we are worth. The key is to find out your worth and find your true identity, not how you grew up. We're chain breakers, guys.
Mhm.
Well, my dad did this and my grandfather. I heard loads of times when my dad did this, but obviously he was taught by his grandfather. I agree with that. Learned behavior and enmeshment. I believe that, but what I don't believe is you carrying on and not breaking the chain. Now we know all about the neuroscience behind this and the proper psychology behind this and the behavioral science behind this. We realize that we need to be chain breakers because at the end of the day, if you think about this real deeply, anything less than nurturing as a child is child abuse when it comes to alcoholics and addicts. Me and my brother, everything I say today, guys, has been researched, has been tested, has been trialed by us over 30 years. So this is why we're the leading authority. Everything that we go through, we will repeat unless we sort the childhood trauma out. It will address us, and that will go on. Most people are 25 more attractive than they think they are. Most people are 20% more competent than we think we are. Most people walk around between 45 and 60 at the most of their capability and capacity because childhood trauma. Our idea is to get you to 100. When you realize therapists do it all the time. They call me up, or doctors, psychologists. Dr. Robb, how much should I charge an hour? I've just started my own practice. What are you, a psychologist? That's cool. So how much are you worth? No. I just want to know how much how much are you worth? That's the bottom line. How much are you worth? And most of them can't give me an answer for that. So they swing it. How much are you worth? I charge $1,500 an hour. Period. Wow, that's a lot. Yeah, but I know my worth today. Why don't you know your worth when you're setting up an empire and this is your first go at it? Why don't you know your worth? And it comes back to what other people say to us. We start to believe. Okay. When we start listening to that, it becomes an internal dialogue. The internal dialogue will become a hard pressed neural pathway part of the brain. So it's a working part of the mind. And then we go from there. See, 99% people can tell you you're amazing. The 100% tell you a waste of time, you're crap. Have a guess who the normal human being is going to focus on. The one person. Because when we're born, Mom says, don't put your hand on the stove, you'll burn it. We put our hand on the stove, we burn it. What lesson do we take from that psychologically? Well, we take what people tell us is the truth. Don't put your hand, it's the truth. Now, as we go through life, we realize psychologically that's not correct. But 95% of even childhood trauma work, that 5% is still out there in the subconscious brain that's telling us that that guy over there who says, I can't do this, is the truth. And once that happens, 1%, when he says it, a one-off comment, we can start to romance. When we start to romance and believe that, it connects with the childhood trauma. So that guy over there saying, "Don't be stupid, you can't get on TV." As a child, put that guitar down. You're never going to be a musician. You can't be on TV. You could be on radio, but you're not as good looking as. And all that plays a part. And we back away and go, forget it. I'm not going to do it.
Well, so Dr. Rob, correct me if I'm wrong. It seems like the way to get over an addiction or something is it all starts with self-belief in believing that you're not an addict or whatever the case may be.
So childhood trauma again, that makes us believe. We tied childhood trauma to addiction. We tried gaming to addiction, all kinds of addiction. But the idea is what is an addiction? It's something you take regularly that's a dysfunction to your life or your family that you repeatedly do. So when we're talking about going to the gym, if you're going to the gym every day, if you're going on vacation with your family, guys, you land in Spain somewhere, and the first thing you're doing is looking for a gym, you have an addiction. You've got to step away from that. Drug addiction is hard. We all know that. I'm not saying this is easy, but if you keep going to meetings and call yourself a drug addict, if you keep going to meetings and call yourself an alcoholic, then the brain believes that and runs with that.
So
And
are there good addictions then? Like, would it be good to be addicted to making money or going to the gym?
See, yeah, definitely. 100%. Well, you've got to be careful. Once the trauma work is done, you'll never go back to a bad addiction. That's the key. But yeah, definitely. I mean, I did the same. But I put it like this. If I'm going to stop drinking, we get two lives in one lifetime. The first one we mess up. The second one we can do some good. If I'm not going to drink, if I'm going to change my life, and the first day when I recovered off the streets, I'm going to create this amazing life. And I'm going to, do things that I've never done before. And I'm going to take chances. I signed $1 million deal in Dallas for offices. It was a floor of a medical building in Highland Park. People going, how do you sleep at night? I mean, that's crazy. Why would you do that? I died twice on the streets in Manchester. That's all I got. What the hell can they do to me that I haven't already done to myself? What are they going to do? Take away my birthday? We've got to start moving forward, and we've got to start creating empires, and we've got to be leaders. And do you know how many times people have said to me, you can't come over here and be on TV. English guy can't come over here in front of 18 million. Check. You can't do, check. You can't be the highest paid doctor in, check. Says who? Who's making these rules up? I don't like them.
I don't like them either.
Yeah.
Wait, so at this point in time, what are you addicted to? You addicted to fitness? You addicted to helping people? What drives you every day?
Well, nothing is addiction because I change patterns every day.
Gotcha.
The AA saying, if I do today what I did yesterday, I'll stay sober. Biggest bullshit in the world. If we don't move forward on a daily basis. Now, what do I like doing? Number one, guys, is helping people. That is it today. I'm 63 years old. With the money I have and the fame and the fortune and all that great stuff that I've acquired, I could ride up in the sunset and never work again and live in $1 billion house. It makes no difference. But helping people is the foundation of my recovery. When I stop helping people, who knows what happens? I could relapse, So we change as many things as we can, but at the end of the day, it's about giving. It's not about me. So that's my, if you want to call it addiction. It's not about me. So how many people? There's a great story I tell when I do conferences, and that this guy walked to the Golden Gate Bridge and he threw himself off and committed suicide. So the police pulled him out of the river. They found his ID. They went back to his apartment looking for next of kin. They found a letter on the table, and the letter read, I'm going to walk to the Golden Gate Bridge. I'm going to jump off and commit suicide unless on the way there somebody says hello or smiles at me or nods at me. And if that be the case, I will stop, I will turn around, and I'll try again. My question to you guys is, how many people have you walked by today that was heading to the Golden Gate Bridge? And that's my addiction. If I can help one, you'll never see me on a podcast. You can thousands and thousands of podcasts. You will never see me sell my services. Oh, here's my website. Here's my book. No, I don't do what? I don't do that. If we can help one person, if one person gets well because of us three today, our jobs are done today.
Well, yeah, that's a great point. I like the point you make about seeing people, I've heard it on other podcasts from you, just being outwardly positive, smiling, saying hello, how are you? And another big one that I've become more aware of is the power of complimenting, whether it be something very minor like hair or outfit, whatever. Like Dr. Rob, look at your outfit today. You look like an absolute rock star here. We got the
Yeah.
yellow glasses, the red button down. I mean, I'm sure you're used to hearing this all the time. How does it impact you when not only you get the positivity, but you give the positivity more importantly?
Yeah, I dressed it to I dress. I don't know why I got yellow golf pants on and red shoes. And I've got about 19 pair of glasses. It's a conversation starter, and when you start feeling your age and acting your age, you're in trouble. That's one of the biggest things with people is they stop moving around. They're sat at the desk all day. We've not even seen the backlash from COVID, guys. So one person I say something to, they may be going home to do something crazy with a gun. And I might have said something that stops that. And the amount of people, guys, I've heard and messaged me and emailed me saying, I was just about to do. And then you came along, a stranger, all smiley and happy, that pissed me off. But I listened to you and you left me in a different state than you found me, whether that be a 30-second conversation. That is living. That's when you know that you're doing the right thing.
Yeah, I love that.
Mhm.
And just to jump back in for a moment, regarding alcoholism, getting into it. So I went to a large state university, and from 18 on, the consumption of alcohol is everywhere. Like everyone's got fake IDs, drinking at the frat parties and the dorms. It's everywhere. And then and now I'm 24 years old, so now I feel like much of social life is revolves around alcohol, and especially Friday, Saturday night. When you talk to people that are anywhere from 18 to I would say 30 that are on that cycle. They work hard 5 days a week, and then they can't wait for Friday night to come around. It comes Friday, Saturday, and they're over consuming. Like it just is, in my opinion, it's not a sustainable life. It may work for some, but when you do speak with those people, what does Dr. Rob tell them about the future that they're heading in?
Look, if you're not an alcoholic, stop drinking, you're an idiot. Or cut down, you're an idiot. You can do that. Most people think they're alcoholic, they're not. But for alcoholics, it becomes a very serious medical condition. But most people, when they go out, they have a great time. They're hungover Monday morning. It's just, what do you want out of life? Is this good enough for you? Because I go back to home 3 or 4 times a year to see my daughter and my granddaughter. Some of my friends, most of them are dead. Some of my friends are in the same old bars, talking the same old crap with the same old mo. It's like, guys, if this is what we want for your life, great. But there's a
Yeah.
big world out there. And let me tell you something right now. You can achieve anything that you want to achieve. Once you find out, the subconscious brain wakes us up. There is a set of exercises we do every morning to bring in the conscious brain. Now, years ago, when I keep telling that story in conferences, they go, well, I can't be president of the United States. Let's forget your political views for a second. We had a businessman running the country for 4 years with no political experience whatsoever. How dare you try and convince me that you can't do it and you can't achieve your dreams? It's just not true. So people who put that there, that's the question. Who put that there? That getting wasted, during the week even or weekends and going around, who put that there? Because it's a lie. So when most people drink, it's like, oh, relax after work. But a lot of people take it to excess. So you got to look at your week. If you're living all week to go crazy on the weekend, what's wrong with your week? So if you're on Sunday night going, oh God, it's work tomorrow, or you're counting the, hump days and then you're doing your TGI, you need another job. What is wrong with you? If you're going on to a relationship and the partner and you're fighting every night and it's miserable, you need another wife or husband. Well, it's not really that easy. It really is that easy. Stop settling for what your caregivers or friends think your life is, because it's not true. It's not true, guys. And like say, if you're abusing alcohol, stop it. How old are you? These alcoholics who can't stop. When you take the first drink, if I took a drink now, I'd still be out of Christmas and nobody could bear to find me because I can't stop. But normal guys, they can stop during the week. If that's the case, how old are you? Come on. 50 years old trying to still be a frat boy. Come on.
So here's another question I have regarding who in this situation I'm about to give you, who is more of the alcoholic? Someone that drinks 2 drinks every night or someone that has 10 plus once a week?
They're probably not alcoholics, either of them.
Mm.
And I'll tell you why, because again, once I take the first drink, I cannot stop. That's how you identify alcoholics, and it's in the family, it passed down generation. So you find out who else is suffering from alcoholism. But yeah, I mean, if you can take a few drinks and then stop for a week, you're not an alcoholic, okay? And a few people are going to get pissed by that. It's like, stop naming yourself an alcoholic. If you can stop, and after the first drink, you can stop for a week or something, stop it. If you go crazy weekend, your life is missing something, that's for sure. But if you're young enough to do that, we've all done it. Go do it. Go do it until you get wore out of it, till it seems weak and old, the idea, you know. But people, I put a picture up in the conferences, and it's a businesswoman in a nice business suit and a briefcase, and a vagrant on, you know, he's sat on the side of the road, he's got his beard down here, he's in tatty clothes, and he's, you know, he looks a mess. And I say to them, which is the alcoholic? And they go, it's the guy on the left. I go, no, they both are. They both are. It's just one's hiding it more than the other. So it's really difficult to say who, you know, whether he drinks all night. It's really difficult to say because alcoholics are a different breed. So let's go back to the question, which would be simpler or which would be more healthy? Couple of glasses of wine every night rather than a binge. Couple of glasses of wine every night, winner every single day. There's a myth going around, if you drink wine at night, it's good for you. One glass of wine is good for you. Bullshit. Any alcohol you put inside your body will do damage. Every pill you put inside your bodies, there are side effects. If you've ever seen the commercials and everyone's dancing and the kids are there, and then you go through the side effects, and like it takes like 50% of the conversation. Da, 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 you may die, you may die, da, 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 da. And you're looking at the dancing baby. It's crazy.
It is crazy. And like you said, those commercials, it's only 2 countries, us and New Zealand, that allow the pharmaceutical advertising. So, one more question regarding alcohol, and this is kind of, you know, when people are done with this alcohol chapter and they find themselves in AA. Why is AA so effective?
Well, in the early days, AA was good, and I'll tell you why. Because they created this book that they call the Big Book. In that book is abs. In the book in 1938, when they were writing it, we're just finding out in the neuroscience now to be true. So, Alcoholics Anonymous, which is the book, is phenomenal. Everyone said you should go there. It's the first choice from doctors because they know. And then what seemed to happen over the years when the treatment center was born, the Betty Fords of this world, or people going to jail, they'd send them to AA. Now, AA was a great society as a whole, where there was a 99% success rate. It's less than 3% now. And what happened to AA when the treatment centers started to send these people to AA is AA as a whole buckled. And we allowed them people to come in and tell us how they felt and talk about things bad and talk about war stories, you know, and the percentage has gone right down. Of course it is. So AA works for me. I don't go anymore because the people in it are idiots. The people in it are just driving crazy. You know, all these, you know, people, I don't know, after the old girl comes in 17 years old and you're 40. Oh, I'll sponsor all that shit that you see. It's disgusting. So it's the first call that everybody goes to. And most people said it doesn't work for them. Find something else. There's loads of stuff out there to get you well. So just because I got sober in AA doesn't mean that that's the only way, because neuroscience tells us that not to be.
And Doctor, I'm curious now that technology is really expanding and you're seeing a lot of children becoming addicted to their screens. Are you dealing with that at all? Do you talk with young kids, and how similar is that to an alcohol addiction?
Well, again, not alcohol, but drug addiction, exactly the same.
Okay.
The brain doesn't know the difference between cell phone and drug addiction. It really doesn't. The brain doesn't know the difference between pharmaceutical drugs and street drugs. It doesn't know the difference. Our brain doesn't know the difference between false and reality. It doesn't know. It really doesn't. So when you're sticking kids, you know, if you have a kid that's gaming 6 hours, 7 hours a day, I'll show you a future addict. I'll show you a future drug addict, guaranteed every time. You see, we've not got to the bottom of the screen. Let me explain in 2 sentences. I was speaking to a 12-year-old kid, and I said, how many friends have you got? And his reply is, I've got 5,000 friends on Facebook. My reply was, you're plugged into the wall. That's all you are. We're losing social skills, we're losing communication skills, we're out in the real world. Then we do go out in the real world, and it's hurtful. And all these keyboard warriors back in my day got punched in the face. But now you can sit behind a keyboard and do anything you want. So this attraction and addiction to cell phones, iPads, gaming, all that stuff, huge, huge impact over the next 10 years.
Well, and
Well,
a
and
lot of sorry, Merrick, a lot of the
yeah,
issues stemmed from the start of COVID. Dude, if you were a kindergartner at 5, 6 years old 5 years ago, you're 10 or 11 now, and that whole span was all online learning. So, like you said, how do you solve the problem?
I think you solve the problem when it raises its head fully.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so there's a prison over here that still executes people. We're allowed to go on in research and interview a couple of people on death row. What we found is by the time somebody gets to the chair on the needle, they're almost insane. Okay. How do you make somebody insane? What's the quickest way to make a human being insane? Isolate them and take away their identity. You've got to stay in your house, you've got to wear a mask. Boom. And all sorts of problems. Alcoholics as a whole, drug addiction went up by 25%. Divorces was at 26%. You know, so the isolation affects people as they grow up. You know, it's crazy, but there's going to be a huge problem. How do you conquer that? Well, you got to work through that trauma. You know, when you're isolating somebody and taking their identity away, you're left with nothing, and nothing will produce nothing.
you talk about all, you know, anyone that's dealt with addiction has faced former trauma in their life. Based off what you just said, that means in the next 10 to 15 years, this generation that just sat at home during COVID, there's going to be a splurge of trauma that emerges in the next decade and a half. Are we prepared as not just a country, but as a world to deal with that?
Hell no. Well, no, because nobody believes it. They want to wipe it under everything's going to be okay. Parents, you know, the kid comes home, he can't be, especially wealthy parents. These are the worst people, man. Kid comes home from school, stick him in front of an iPhone or a game station, take him away, just you don't have to deal with it. We're not ready for the epidemic that's going to follow of new people. You've got to look in the workplace now with young people coming in. They want cry rooms, they want blah, blah, blah. I mean, you can't actually blame them for that. But as a society, we need to stand up and go, hey, we need to address this. We need to address the trauma that they've been through. And some will be easy and some will be hard. But we've come away. Okay, piss your listeners off, time. We've gone away from real men. We've gone away from people who are leaders. If we don't have leaders, we'll follow this sheep. We're very good in this country, and I'm American. We're very good in this country at following sheep. Well, anyway, look at the political race at the moment. Again, not into politics whatsoever. They're fighting against each other. They're causing divide in the country. You go back to the Reagan days, nothing like that. So everyone wants to fight. Everybody wants to do this. Everybody wants to separate the country. Everyone's angry. It's like, what is really going on? And you've got to look back to COVID as a source of one of the reasons.
Wow. I've been following the work recently of Callie and Casey Means. I'm sure you have too. They just recently went on Tucker Carlson's podcast, and they say from the moment you're born, I think it's a Hep B vaccine while in the infirmary. You're pharmaceutically in from the second you're born. So going back to these young children that are on their way to becoming teenagers and then young adults, as this trauma heightens and enlarges and just overall encapsulates their worlds, with the pharmaceutical power, you think that the only mechanism to help them is to put them on pharmaceuticals, and then from there you're developing another generation of addicts.
Wake up, America. That's exactly what it is, Merrick. The pharmaceutical companies have got us from the first ailment. So let's look. If I'm depressed, so what's the definition? In the American Medical Dictionary for depression? Simple: lack of serotonin. Okay, so I feel depressed, but I go to the doctor and I say I feel depressed, and he puts me on depression medication. Now it's a false serotonin. Now I rely on that false serotonin for the rest of my life as mine depletes more and more and more. So now I'm stuck on that drug for the rest of my life to feel okay. Before we first go to the doctor, why isn't anybody asking why my serotonin is low in the first place? Nobody's asking that. So in America as a whole, the food industry gets you sick 90% of stuff is cornstarch spray, the oils, the rancid sunflower oils, and all that horrible oils that were used on the locomotion engines back in the day. So Rockefeller created this health board just to convince everybody that the cooking oils were amazing. It's the latest thing. You cook it, they're rancid oils. Most of them we can't methylate as a person. If we can't methylate certain foods we're eating, there becomes a deficiency. That deficiency causes the ailment, the inflammation, the depression, but nobody's talking about that. So the food company gets us sick, and the pharmaceutical companies keep us hooked for the rest of our life. Why are you putting a 9 and 10-year-old on Adderall? Oh, he can't concentrate. Really? What happened 20 years ago, 30 years ago, when empires were made and men were men? No such thing as Adderall. You got to clip around the ear until to get on with it, but we're also quick to put them on. Anything that makes us feel different from the pharmaceutical companies, you'll never get that brain the same or the conscious mind the same ever again, because it ignites at a different voltage in the brain, and you're never going to get it back. I mean, we're killing our kids and nobody's doing anything about it. And the reason is there's no money in recovery. There's no money in getting people well. You want to eat well and go to Whole Foods, costs you twice as much to eat well these days, and then you look at McDonald's fries in America, has 27 ingredients. You go to England and buy McDonald's fries, it has 3 ingredients. What's going on? Why are we sticking all this rancid stuff into foods? And if you really want to get into the food, you go back to the biggest 2 tobacco companies that were cigarettes and all that stuff. When they found out there was trouble coming, they bought one of the biggest food industries, and then they introduced, 1993, they introduced the preservatives into the food. We don't eat real food today.
So what do you, how about for you yourself, what do you eat? How do you try to avoid all this bullshit?
There's 4 oils you need, guys. Okay, get a pen. Listening, guys, get a pen.
Let's
4
go.
oils. That's all you need. You need a coconut oil, you need an olive oil, and you need avocado oil and a good grass-fed butter. That's it.
Yep.
And that's it. You go in and shop tomorrow. Find the shiniest box you can see of health bars. Take the health bar off. That's exactly. Take the health bar off, and it goes 9 grams of protein and 0 fat. Wow, that's going to be good for you. Spin the thing. Look at the ingredients. There's at least 30 ingredients in there. 22 of them ingredients. Probably we're not meant for human consumption. 4 of them ingredients we can't methylate as human beings. So I hated the organic stuff. And like, what a biggest cunt. Organic vitamins to start with. If you haven't got organic vitamins, turn it round. You'll see cyanide. Every single vitamin pill, I never say that word, cyanocamelone, something like that. It's got cyanide in. Just turn the package round, guys, and look. Not asking you to go out and go to Whole Foods the rest of your life. I'm asking 1 day a week. If you want to start getting better, look what you're putting in your mouth and look what you're feeding the kids. Because I'll tell you something, guys, and I get this all the time, parents. Well, my 9-year-old Johnny just can't keep still at school. It's being put back a year. I just don't understand it. What are you giving him for breakfast? Oh, I'm giving, the Irish breakfast, I don't know what they're called now, the breakfast cereal or this, and then we're giving him a Pop-Tart to go out. What? You just filled him with like 20 spoonfuls of sugar, and you ate Lucky Charms, and you expect him to go to school and sit down. Are you kidding me? There's like 12 breakfasts that are banned in every other country apart from America, and we feed this to our kids.
It's crazy. It is crazy. And when it comes to back to addiction, we think of opioids, we think of alcohol, we think of porn, sex, but is there an argument to be made that the number one addiction, not just America, but the world, is sugar?
Yes. And you know something? Sometimes with sugar in McDonald's fries, sometimes we don't know we're consuming sugar because it's all hidden in the wording, all the trans fats, the extra this. It sounds amazing when you read the back, but if you look at what them ingredients are, let's say in a Diet Coke, you are consuming 10 spoonfuls of sugar in a Diet Coke. Get a normal Coke, you're consuming 10.5 spoonfuls. So this Diet Coke and Coke, what a con. The biggest con in the world. Because it's bad for you. All that crap in there is bad for you, man.
Yeah, fucking the Coke. I mean, it really is everywhere. Like when it comes to fast food, which we don't eat anymore, it's concerning when you can't read the ingredients. I recently learned that a lot of these ingredients that are unpronounceable, back in like the 30s and 40s with the war effort, all these scientists were going next level, like a term we're somewhat familiar with it, warp speed. They were going warp speed with the ingredients, making new things, all for the war effort. Then in 1945, when the war concluded, they had all this leftover material sitting around. They didn't know what to do with it. And here comes the food companies, the pharmacy companies will take all your product. And then from there, the obesity rose, diabetes rose, heart failure, all throughout. I think they started in the United States, but it's really made its way throughout the entire world. You being from Manchester, I'm sure you've seen it with what's going on in the UK the last few years.
Yeah, yeah. And if you don't believe this, guys, do me a favor. Go to the store, buy a loaf of bread. Go to a big store, buy a loaf of bread. Then try and find a baker and go to the baker and make you one loaf. Take the two home and see how long they last. The one you bought from the supermarket will still be eatable in 10 days' time. The one you bought direct off the baker will go stale in 2 days. What's in the frigging bread? It's crazy. Nobody knows because nobody's educated. Nobody wants to know. They have lobbyists all over the place trying to tell us that sugar's good, that eggs are bad. It's like, guys, wake up. I want to shake everybody by the scruff of the neck and go, have you seen? They're poisoning us. We don't eat real food. So going back, I try and eat as much organic stuff as I can. Obviously, it's not always possible because I'm not a freak about it, but I just know that I'm really healthy today. I've just lost 157 pounds over the last 18 months. And that kind of turned me around to eating properly, about what we are consuming. And if we made a little bit of an effort, seeing what's on the back of the package, there are loads of different brands in supermarkets, stores that you can eat instead of the one that we normally go through. I mean, the orange juice, Sunny, whatever it's called, worst thing you can drink.
Yeah, and you know what? I was a good victim to this because I live in Florida where we got some of the best orange juice in the world. And about 2 years ago, I was drinking Tropicana, and my brothers Ethan and Evan called me out. They're like, "What the fuck are you doing? You live in Florida and you're buying Tropicana." And I literally had a light bulb go off. I never had consumed it ever again. I don't drink orange juice much anymore, although I do like it. But I mean, I just was like part of my brain opened up. Where I'm like, what are you doing? Like you're conscious about your health and what you consume, but you're drinking Tropicana orange juice.
And it looks so shiny and it looks so nice and it's brightly cut. They're chemicals, by the way. That's coloring Tropicana's. I don't think it's seen an orange in its day. I gotta admit, But yeah, I mean, it's just we believe in what people are telling us. We believe that we're eating healthy and we're not, and it's damaging us. It's like my father has heart problems, for instance, and all of a sudden in my 30s and 40s, I get heart problems. So obviously it's been passed down from my dad. Impossible. Biologically impossible. What happens is going back to the staple diet of the family, there's something in that diet or vitamins or something that he's not methylating. So again, causes the absence, it causes an illness. Let's say it's heart problems. So when I leave that house and start, either get an apartment or start dating, my staple diet kind of stays the same. So then I get heart problems because my dad's the same genes, I can't methylate. I got heart problems, but now I want to blame it on my dad and just genetics. No, not possible. You've got to look at what you're eating. You've got to move around. We've got to stop telling Granny to put the coat on and stay inside. We've got to stop thinking that 60 is old, that we can't be doing anything. We've got to stop doing that. Get Granny out, put an extra coat, get her out in the snow, get her moving. If you don't move for at least 20 to 40 minutes every single day, you become stagnant. Oh, my back is aching. You sat in a chair for 10 hours, of course your back's freaking aching. Anybody's back will ache if they sit there. 20-year-old will ache. You've got to get up and move around. You've got to keep mobile, guys. There's four chemicals in the brain, man, that need to happen. Dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphins. The four chemicals need to happen for you to be in a happy state, period. What we look at is dopamine and serotonin is created in the stomach, in the gut. So if I'm not eating, or if I'm eating all these processed oils and rancid oils, them chemicals are going to be depleted, and therefore I'm going to start becoming depressed. So when people get depressed because you're not eating properly, well, you're depressed because you're taking all this shit in, that you shouldn't be taking in. You can't methylate. That's a fucking problem right now. It's like nobody's telling the truth. Everyone wants to hide it up. It's like, come on, it's not true. Go to your normal biology library and look at the sections and find out what you are not doing. Everybody can achieve anything they want to be. Quantum physics and neuroscience, what we study, tells us that unequivocally, tells us that we can do that. But we believe we can't. We get stuck in a food that mom and dad used to eat, so we eat the same thing. Come on, guys. It's 2024. Who's a chain breaker? Who wants to break that shit chain that everyone's fallen into? Because you can. Anytime you want, you can go, okay, you know something? One day a week, I'm going to eat organic. Or one day a week, I'm going to buy fruit or freaking orange juice that's real orange juice from oranges. Remember those days? And I'm going to just do that for one day. It's amazing the difference you'll feel. And then obviously you'll start doing that 2 or 3 days because you feel so good. It's like the subconscious brain wakes us up in the morning. This is the guy that's following the sheep, never going to amount to anything, recalls bad stuff from the past, piece of crap, never amount to anything, piece of shit, you're too ugly, you're too fat. That guy in the morning wakes us up. And the reason why it wakes us up is lack of oxygen. So when oxygen is sparse, the subconscious brain clicks in. Boom. So when the prefrontal cortex asks for an answer, that's what job it is. Give me an answer in milliseconds. It jumps straight to the subconscious brain because the conscious brain is here in the back. There's a method to do this, and the breath work. Okay.
Yeah, I heard.
Presence of oxygen.
And I think
like a disease.
I think in a previous interview, that's why you mentioned when you wake up in the morning, the first thing you don't do is laugh. You're not jumping out of bed.
Nobody woke up laughing. Yeah,
no,
nobody woke up
that's
laughing.
a great. That's a great point. So, and going back to so before I even knew who you were, that video of you that went viral with "I love you 10 times in the mirror," or no, it starts with "brush your teeth" with the left hand, then 10 "I love yous," and then 25 deep breaths. Were you taught that, or is that something that you came up with organically?
No, I was taught that by a guy called Gary Brecker.
Oh,
we actually share patients together now, which is awesome. But yeah, Gary Brecker is a human biologist. And when I first heard him, because I've heard everybody, I don't listen to anybody these days. People will send me message, hey, have you listened to this guy talking? I don't want to listen to anybody talking. I do my own research and we're doing pretty good. But when I heard this guy by accident, my mind was blown. And then you go and find out he was a researcher, a biology researcher with insurance companies. And if you go to Gary, because what he used to do the insurance companies, by taking blood and looking at medical records, which all insurances are allowed to do, nobody knew that, he will tell the insurance companies when that guy's going to die. Within 48 hours of when that guy's going to die based on how he's eating, how he's behaving right now. So the insurance companies will back away a little bit and not covering for this or not covering. Very clever. But when he come out of that, he's a genius, man. So when we did our neuroscience research behind the breath work, it was mind-blowing. And it's not like, the Wim Hof is just 20 exaggerated breaths in and out. Exaggerate. Just do 20 in the morning, man. It will change your life, but it will ignite the conscious brain. When there's no oxygen or limited oxygen, that's when the subconscious brain works. When we're terrified, when we're in fear, when we're anxious, the subconscious is leading the show. You do this breath work and oxygenate every cell in your body within 20 breaths, conscious brain kicks in, and you think clearer and act clearer.
Yeah, we're a big fan of Gary's work. We actually had his wife Sage on our show about over a year ago. They're brilliant. What they're building out of Miami is really it's next level because it does take that pharmaceutical approach that we talked about earlier out of the equation, which obviously based off what we've said, we love that. So pretty awesome what they're doing down there.
Yeah, I love it.
And Dr. Robb, it seems like everyone knows what they need to do to get healthy. It's just people don't do it. And I think the best way for us and people to change their ways is for just more people to talk about it. And I think you've done an incredible job. Gary's done an incredible job just letting people know of some of the poison that is being served to us.
It's all about patterns. When you get into a pattern of what you eat and what you do, and Friday night's this
Uh-huh.
and Thursday night that, you get into that pattern. The pattern is hard to break if you don't see the pattern. So definition of insanity is me not being able to see my own truth. So I'm in a pattern of eating this, and it's all about patterns. And if you don't believe me, guys, have you ever been on a bus anywhere to the, let's say to the seaside or whatever, with a bunch of guys or girls? You go down there, you have a little party and you have a few drinks, and get back on the bus. Which seat do you sit in? The same seat you went there in. Now, I know that's a pattern that's really obvious to explain, but everything's about these patterns. Now, you see this in marriages where the woman who's being abused by the man will not leave that relationship, okay? Because it becomes a comfort zone. So years ago, back in the late 60s, there was a girl snatched up the side of the street in Manchester, schoolgirl, blonde hair, blue eyes. There was a huge manhunt. Couldn't find her. So eventually, 9 months later, she was presumed dead. A police car following another car down a country road. He had a broken back light. They pulled him over. Back in the day, remember, you don't need any search warrants then. They looked into his car. One of the things they used to say is, "What's in the trunk?" You go, "Oh, yellow jacket, pair of boots." They opened it, yellow jacket. Yeah, it's your car. Off you go. But they found a stolen screwdriver, one stolen screwdriver with the price tag still on, no receipt. So now they're allowed to go back in the house and search. And sure enough, lawnmowers, drills, all that stuff are there. But they found a box in the corner. It was like 4 foot high by 12 foot wide. So the police obviously said, "We know you got more stolen stuff in there." So they smashed the lock up and opened it. There was the girl that went missing 9 months ago. She was still alive, bruised and battered. He used to take her out every day, abuse her, restroom, feed, and then back into the box. For 9 months, he did that. So when the police woman stepped over, she took this little girl's hand. She helped her step outside the box. She took her police coat off and she wrapped it around the girl. What's the first thing the girl did? She got back in the box. And that's what we do in life. We stay in these comfort zones because we're scared of making a move into the future. So we get back in that box, and we get back in that box, even though it's painful. It becomes a comfort zone that we can tolerate because we're scared of change.
Well, that's
Wow.
really powerful. I mean, you know, it's a great perspective and obviously a terrible story that happened, but why do you think the human is conditioned to just be so comfortable? Obviously, it makes sense, but there's so many stories of how greatness is on the other side of comfort.
Definitely. You've got to come out of the comfort zone to achieve greatness. And the best great people have been in horrific situations like myself, but we follow sheep. That's what we do. So if your friend's in a relationship with a man who's going bad and yours is going bad, you're not going to move. We did an experiment, and I know it's been done before, but I obviously am a doctor. So we got 9 patients that came in, and they all knew, we all paid them to come in. They were ex-patients of mine, and one new girl to come in. Now the girl didn't know that the other guys had been paid to sit there. Okay, so all 10 of them are waiting in the waiting room. All of a sudden, we pressed the buzzer, and all 9 people stood up. And the woman was looking at them, and they sat down. Somebody came out, Johnny Smith. So Johnny left. A couple of minutes later, everybody stood up again, apart from this woman. The 4th time it went, she stood up with everybody else. And then she sat down again. After all the patients were called in one by one, she was on her own. She stood up. That's how we follow bad patterns. That's how we stay there for life and don't realize what's going on, because nobody wants to be different these days. Everybody wants to fit in. Everybody wants people to like them. And we have no leaders. If you had a leader in that room and said, "Sit down, what's going on? What are you doing that for?" Everybody would stay still, but they're not. It was an experiment we wanted to do, to find out how easy it is to program one person, just one person, within 22 minutes of doing something that she thought was crazy when she first saw it, but she dived in and did it. Even when she was on her own, she still stood up and the buzzer went off.
Wow. And there's a difference between leading and then leading by example. Is there any instances that you've, been one of those, not that you were a follower, but been one of those 9 and someone that was not practicing what they were preaching? You know what I mean?
Yeah, you see it all the time. If people say to me, "How long have you been sober?" "Oh, why?" "Oh, I just wanted to know, if you're experienced." When I walk into a room, you just know that I'm recovered. I've got it going. I know what I'm doing. Everything's good. I've got it. You know, I'm not impressed by periods of time. My 26 years sobriety sponsor took me home, put sleeping tablets in my coffee and raped me. That's 26, 27 years. So it doesn't really, I don't buy into that. I buy into the fact that you can change instantly, that you can recover instantly, and you can fit in instantly, but you have to be doing this stuff. There was a presenter in Manchester. He advertised the seatbelts, clunk click, Jimmy Savile, clunk click every trip. That was the mantra, and everyone did and followed. Then he found him one day not wearing his seatbelt. He's like, if you're not doing it, if you're not practicing it, how the fuck can you teach it? You can't. It's like these therapists and psychologists. You go to college. I'm not an alcoholic. I got 5 years. I got an M.A. in addiction. If you haven't been where I've been, you can't help me. So when I was looking for my therapist, because I want to go once a month and talk shit to her so she'll listen, the first guy came out and he's like, oh yeah, I've done 15 years at Harvard, on addiction. Are you an alcoholic? No. Well, you can't help me. Oh, I beg to differ. I've got all these certificates. So I said, okay, scenario. You have a bottle of vodka behind your back and I want it and you won't give it to me. Okay. Then I stab you in the face repeatedly until you drop that bottle. Whoa, there's no need to get violent. Yeah, you're not my guy. Eventually, I found this 80-year-old ex-heroin addict hippie. I walked in, I said the same thing to her, and I said, I'll stab you in the face repeatedly, waiting for her action. And she said to me, I'd stab you in the face quicker. That's my girl. She understands my thought patterns because they're not normal sometimes. You see, that guy on the fucking streets that survived, that fought every single day to survive fist fighting, that guy at the end of the day would fucking kick your ass if you stood out of line. That guy's still there. I may need that guy one day. I needed him definitely when I was on the streets. So it's there. And once you've been through that and it's there, you can communicate with other people and get them well. But if you haven't been there, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, that's listen, Dr. Robb, you've lived an incredible life. A lot of plateaus, you've done it all. We appreciate you. And I want to send our listeners off with one final thought from you. Going back to the technology argument with the young children or any addiction for that matter, when you are the parent, the friend, the girlfriend, the boyfriend, and your person you love is dealing with this, what is the proper way to address it?
Start dialogue, guys. If it's a kid that you think is going through some stuff or maybe taking drugs, search his bedroom. And parents go, well, it's private to him. Really? So in 6 months' time, when you find him dead in that bedroom from fucking overdose, is that still private to him? Start dialogue with your kids. Start dialogue with your partner. Find out what's going on. You'll find out it's an alcoholic. He can't stop. We need to get him help. Other ways we can guide him away. We are the 9 people we hang around. So if he's hanging with the bad kids at school and taking drugs, he's going to do the same. Remember, the learned behavior from around us is what we take on as normal. So you need to start pressing. You could call loads of people and ask for, can you help me? As a good therapist, and get him some therapy if needed, or call us free of charge. I've got 6 women at the back over there that just constantly talks to parents, and gives them advice. It's just don't wait until it's too late.
Dr. Robb, we appreciate you very much joining the Everything But Politics podcast. And I could confidently say after this conversation that we do need more people like you in this world. So thank you very much for joining our show. It's been an honor, and we will see you guys next Monday. Dr. Robb Kelly, thank you.
Thank you so much.